In 1923 in Tennessee, Rafe and Danny are playing with an old broken biplane while pretending to be soldiers in World War I. They also watch Rafe's father fly his plane around the farm. After the man lands, the kids sneak on his plane to keep playing, only to activate it by accident. The kids panic as the plane advances without control for several minutes, but thankfully they manage to stop it in the middle of the field. When they go back, Danny's father furiously drags him away and hits him for hanging out with Rafe, calling him a stupid boy who can't read. Rafe grabs an old propeller and hits the man with it as he calls him a dirty German. Danny's father explains he fought the Germans in the war and hopes that nobody will ever see the things he saw. Then he walks off, so Danny tells Rafe that he's his best friend before going after his dad. In 1941, World War II is at its height. Danny and Rage are first lieutenants in the Air Force and they always like to show off their piloting skills. Their teammates are impressed but Major Doolittle is annoyed. One afternoon, Doolittle tells Rafe that he's been accepted into the Eagle Squadron from Britain, so he has to choose between staying in the American Air Force or going to London. When Rafe asks for advice, Doolittle says he'd choose London. Later Rafe tells Danny that Doolittle assigned him to London instead of admitting that it was his choice, but Danny is still upset. He's always wanted to fight together and can't trust anyone else to have his back. In a train to New York, Evelyn and her friends discuss what it's been like to be nurses for the military. Evelyn shares that she had a romance with Rafe 4 weeks ago, describing it as the most romantic days of her life. She met him during the eye exam, which proved he couldn't read well. Rafe had dyslexia but he could see everything else perfectly well, so Evelyn passed him anyway. Afterward, when Evelyn gave him a shot, they bonded over their dads being veterans, but Rafe kept on flirting. Suddenly he started to feel sick and Evelyn realized he'd brought another soldier's chart just to see her again. He'd already had the shot and receiving it again made him pass out, hitting his nose on his way down. In the evening, Rafe waited for Evelyn outside the hospital with some champagne. His nose kept hurting so she took care of it, and they ended up kissing. When the train arrives at the station, Rafe is waiting for Evelyn with a little origami bird. He's brought some of his teammates and he introduces them to the other nurses so they can all go together to the club to have fun. The soldiers do their best to flirt with the nurses but they aren't very good at it. While everyone else is distracted, Rafe and Evelyn sneak into the harbor and take a police boat so they can reach a fancy cruise ship nearby. They kiss on the platform that is taking them up, however they accidentally push the lever and the platform suddenly falls into the water. Luckily they manage to hold on. When they return to the hotel, Rafe tells her that he's going to London and admits he volunteered. He promises he'll come back for her and asks her not to come to the train station because it would hurt too much. Evelyn gives him her scarf as a farewell gift. The next day Danny sees Rafe off. Evelyn shows up anyway but she's late, so Rafe only sees her from the train window. As the war continues, the British Air Force is having too much trouble trying to maintain control of the sky. Rafe is assigned to a plane full of bullet holes and bloodstains from the previous pilot, who didn't die until he landed. In the USA, the president tells his team that they need to help Europe more to defeat the Nazis. In response to this, Japan plans to retaliate by destroying the American Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor. Evelyn's team of nurses and Danny's squadron are sent to Pearl Harbor, where pilots are decorating their planes with funny pictures. As weeks pass, Evelyn and Rafe always make sure to write letters to each other, sharing how their lives are doing. Rafe explains it's hard to make friends because men are dying every day in battle. At least he's proud of guiding his team well and not losing a fight so far. The USA keeps sending fleets to the Atlantic, and the admiral isn't very happy with all these strange tactics. Japan is secretly taking pictures of everything to keep track of their position and preparing torpedoes for a big attack. One day the London base activates its siren and Rafe's team rushes to get on their planes to engage in another battle. Their teamwork is impeccable and in just a few minutes they bring several enemy planes down. Unfortunately, an enemy surprises Rafe's plane from behind and manages to shoot it, causing an oil leak. As a fire begins, Rafe can't see anything and can't get out either because the canopy is stuck. He shoots the glass to break it, but before he can escape, the plane is shot again and it quickly goes down, crashing into the sea. Meanwhile, Danny is watching a boxing match on one of the newly arrived Navy ships and even betting money on the results. All the soldiers are cheering for their favorite candidates and Danny is happy to see his fighter win. However, the fun is interrupted when he receives terrible news. Minutes later, Danny visits Evelyn to inform her that Rafe died in combat. They discuss how alone they feel without Rafe and Danny learns that his friend actually volunteered. Rafe's old team and the nurses gather to drink in Rafe's name as a final goodbye. A few days later, Evelyn is crushed to receive the last letters that Rafe sent her. Japan continues to prepare its big attack and tries to send out fake messages to its troops, knowing that the USA is spying on them. However, the American intelligence team can tell something is going on. 3 months later, Danny and Evelyn are still hanging out together, finding comfort in their shared grief. Evelyn forgets her handkerchief at the restaurant, so Danny goes to the nurse's house to return it. They agree to see each other more often, although Evelyn is unsure. The next day the other nurses tease her and assure her it's fine to move on. At home, Evelyn puts the letters and the origami bird away with a final goodbye. In Washington, D.C., they discover that the Japanese fleet is missing and their planes can't find them, which is extremely suspicious. At Pearl Harbor, Danny has become a very good team leader. Evelyn comes to visit him and Danny admits to his friends that he feels bad for falling in love with his best friend's girl, but they encourage him to move on. Then Danny takes Evelyn on a flight so they can watch the sunset together in the sky. When they come back, they hide in the parachute garage and get naughty. The next morning Evelyn shows some doubts about what they did, but Danny assures her it's fine and they agree to start dating. As days pass, Danny and Evelyn are very happy in their new relationship. Japan and the USA continue to spy on each other and have to take lots of guesses to understand what their intel is trying to tell them. Fleets and planes on both sides are moved every day, trying to keep the enemy on their toes. One night Evelyn is working at the hospital and when she looks up, she's shocked to see Rafe there. At the same time Danny gets a letter from Rafe telling him what happened. Rafe survived the crash and by thinking about Evelyn, he found the strength to get out of the plane and swim to the surface. A French fishing boat found him and he stayed in France recovering. A crying Evelyn tries to kiss Rafe but pulls back, feeling guilty. At that moment they're found by Danny, and Rafe walks away when he realizes what's going on. Afterward Rafe goes to the bar to reunite with his teammates and share his experience. When Danny arrives, Rafe makes a mocking toast in his name. An argument ensues as Danny reminds Rafe that they thought he was dead, but Rafe still thinks his friend betrayed him and suddenly punches him. The other soldiers try to separate them to no avail, and the duo keeps on fighting as they break things all over the bar. Soon the police arrive and everyone in the bar runs away. Rafe and Danny get in a car and drive away until they find a spot where they can discuss things calmly. Danny wants to reconcile but Rafe can't see how things can go back to normal. The next morning, the Japanese army is finally ready to launch its attack. The American army receives messages telling them that the peace talks were unsuccessful and Japan has been destroying all their coding machines. The soldiers at the radar notice a large haze but think it's too big to be planes. The Americans suspect an incoming attack but can't guess where. Soon the Japanese planes reach Pearl Harbor and some of the pilots are flying so close to the ground that they try to warn the innocent civilians. Once they reach the base, they open fire with all kinds of weapons. Everyone is taken by surprise and has to run among the explosions to organize a counterattack. Rafe and Danny wake up in the car and immediately drive off to join their team. American ships blow up one after the other with entire squadrons inside, and dozens of people die from just one hit. Anyone who survives the torpedoes is brought down by the shower of bullets that makes sure not to leave a single ship functioning. At the nurse's home, Evelyn sees the attack and tells her friends to rush to the hospital. As they run on the streets, many of them are killed too. The Japanese planes open fire at the buildings, making sure to kill soldiers still in bed. Bodies are piling all over the harbor and men are devastated to have their teammates die in their arms. Survivors on the few standing ships open fire with the ship's weaponry and manage to bring down a plane or two, but they're still at a clear disadvantage. The American soldiers running to their planes are under heavy fire too, so most of them can't even make it. A few soldiers try to open fire with whatever firearm they can find and even get on the roof for a better view, but they're brought down quickly too. Soon the planes are also being blown up, causing more explosions that add to the body count. Danny and Rafe jump out of the car and try their best to sneak around the explosions and bullets, hoping to find a functional plane they can use to fight back. At the hospital, nurses and doctors have to move the patients away from the windows because the building is being attacked too. They cover themselves with mattresses to protect their bodies from the falling debris as the hospital walls crumble. After lots of running, Rafe and Danny manage to enter a building and make a phone call to ask for reinforcements. The neighboring building then blows up and damages all the lines, so the duo is forced to keep moving. Danny guides Rafe and a group of soldiers back to his car, explaining there's a small mechanic runway nearby that hasn't been hit yet. A few planes follow them with open fire but the men duck and manage to dodge the bullets, although the car is damaged. On the shore, ships keep on sinking and soldiers fall to their deaths. Those who try to swim are shot down by the planes. Some men try to hide under the fallen ships while others are stuck under the ship's weight and slowly drown to death. At the hospital, nurses and doctors have to use other rooms like the kitchen to take care of their patients. It's absolute chaos and their care suffers from it. Meanwhile, the car group makes it to the last standing base and grabs all the weapons they can find. They're desperate to open fire, but Rafe forces them to wait to avoid giving away their position. The Japanese planes fly by without seeing anything and Rafe makes the group come out with open fire when the enemy is looking the other way. Japan immediately fires back, killing several of the soldiers. Danny is devastated to see a friend die and Rafe has to drag him out of the way. Once they have an opening, the group runs to get on the remaining planes, although Japan quickly catches on and blows up a few of them. Danny and Rafe take off together on the last two planes, agreeing to work together like the old times. They manage to reach the runway right before the enemy blows up the hangar. Using their old tactics and perfect teamwork, the duo flies around the base bringing as many Japanese planes as possible. The men on the ground provide backup fire, shooting down the planes that try to escape. Then the duo reaches the harbor, where Danny and Rafe's teamwork manages to defeat several Japanese planes. Since they don't have the element of surprise anymore, the enemy is forced to retreat. At the hospital, they don't have enough staff and resources to save everyone, so Evelyn is told to sort patients between those who can recover and those who are hopeless. Civilians are starting to arrive too, and the nurses are devastated to see the body of one of their own. Soon the rest of the troops go out in boats to search the waters and rescue survivors, but they mostly find bodies. Rafe and Danny stop at the hospital to donate blood, making the situation awkward around Evelyn. Then they join the rescue team that is moving an upside-down ship to try to save the few soldiers stuck inside. Unfortunately, the tools can't open a hole fast enough and the last men die. The next day, the US president talks about the incident at a conference and officially declares a state of war against Japan. His advisors are nervous about his plans, but the president stands from his wheelchair to prove they can achieve anything. After a ceremony dedicated to all the fallen soldiers, Evelyn talks with Rafe in private and learns that he and Danny will work with Major Doolittle on a secret mission. Evelyn reveals she's pregnant with Danny's child and explains she'll give him her whole heart, but she'll also love Rafe her whole life. Later, Evelyn goes to see the guys off and Rafe finally allows Danny to have his happiness. As they say goodbye, Evelyn promises Danny that she'll wait for him and won't leave him for Rafe. When the duo reunites with Doolittle, they learn they've been given a silver star and promoted to captain. Doolittle tells them the secret mission is extremely dangerous and they likely won't come back, but they still want to fight for their country. Later, Rafe burns Evelyn's letters and tries to convince Danny not to take the mission, but since Danny doesn't know about the baby, he refuses to quit. The secret mission team trains for months and is finally ready to act in 1942. Doolittle gives them an inspiring speech while mechanics remove heavy parts of the plane so they can fly faster. They do a few test drives and even Doolittle shows off his skills before they leave. The planes are transported on American ships and Doolittle explains that they'll be attacking Tokyo. It's a long flight, so in order to refuel, they'll be stopping in China, and Doolittle teaches them how to say "I'm American" in Chinese. Rafe and Danny are worried about their difference in numbers, but Doolittle assures them they have a plan. Back in the base, Evelyn asks a friend for a favor and he gets her to sit in the comms room so she can hear how Danny and Rafe are doing. Doolittle goes over the plan with his team and surprises everyone by announcing he'll fly too, which his higher-ups don't approve of. Unfortunately, the Japanese army detects their presence earlier than planned. At least Doolittle's intel men learn this by spying on Japan's communications, and the Americans can run to get ready. Since they can't stop in China, they don't have enough fuel for the whole battle, so they start removing as much weight from the planes as possible. Rafe and Danny shake hands and make each other promise they'll be careful. Thankfully, the team is full of expert pilots and they manage to take off on the ship's short runways. When they find the factories in Tokyo, they immediately start dropping bombs, destroying several buildings. Japanese soldiers run to their weapons to fire back and many of their planes are severely damaged. This brings them down and kills the pilots, making their small numbers even smaller. The surviving planes dodge the attack the best they can and move ahead, however they're flying blind because the ship that brought them is also taken down. They lose contact with the base and Evelyn can't know what's happening anymore. The team is almost out of fuel and is worried they won't make it, but thankfully Rafe sees some rice fields and they agree to land there. Sadly, Rafe's propellers stop working and his planned landing becomes an explosive crash. As a fire spreads around them, the survivors leave the wreckage, only to be surrounded by Japanese soldiers with open fire. Rafe and his men shoot back while taking cover, losing all hope of escape. At that moment, Danny's plane appears and shoots most of the Japanese men down in seconds. However, the plane runs out of fuel and has a hard crash nearby. Worried about their friends, Rafe's team comes out of hiding and runs through the field while shooting at any enemy hiding in the tall grass. Rafe finds Danny with a piece of metal stuck in his neck and tries to help him, only for an enemy to hit him from behind. The Japanese soldiers surround all the survivors and start tying them up. Rafe finds a fallen gun and opens fire, quickly killing a few opponents before running out of ammo. The enemy gets ready to shoot Rafe in return, however Danny jumps in and acts as a shield. The other American soldiers use this distraction to reach for a grenade and finish the last few Japanese men off. Rafe runs to Danny's side and tells him about the baby, hoping that it'll give him the strength to stay alive. However, Danny tells Rafe that he'll be the father instead and dies in his friend's arms. Moments later, the Chinese army finds the group and rescues them. When Rafe returns to the USA, Evelyn is happy to see him, however she breaks down when she realizes the coffin they're carrying is for Danny's body. All the survivors from the Pearl Harbor battle, including nurses and doctors, are given medals for their bravery, and they become the inspiration that helps the USA win the war. Eventually, Evelyn has her kid and names him Danny. Rafe becomes his father and takes him on flights to honor Danny's memory. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.